Dari the sleeping giant. The stars had watched humanity for 300 years. From the moment the first radio signals escaped Earth's atmosphere, the elder races of the galaxy turned their ancient eyes toward a small blue world in the Orion Arm. They watched with mild curiosity as humans killed each other in great wars. They observed without emotion as disease swept across continents. They noted with quiet amusement when humanity finally built ships capable of reaching other planets. The Galactic Concord, an alliance of 12 species who had ruled the stars for 10,000 years, considered humanity a young and foolish race. Dangerous to themselves, perhaps, but never to anyone else. The elder races had seen species like humanity before, aggressive, emotional, short-lived. Such races either destroyed themselves or eventually learned their place in the grand order of things. Humanity, the Conquered believed, would be no different. Admiral Park Jun-ho stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn and stared at the communication screen. His face showed nothing, his eyes revealed even less. He had served in the United Earth Defense Fleet for 40 years, and he had learned long ago that showing emotion to aliens was a weakness they would exploit. The face on the screen belonged to High Speaker Torvesh, leader of the Galactic Concord. Torvesh was ancient beyond human understanding, a being of crystal and light who had guided galactic politics since before humans learned to write. His voice echoed like wind through empty halls. "Your request is denied, Admiral," Torvesh said. "The Concord will not authorize human intervention in the Thessan conflict." Jun-ho kept his voice steady. "High Speaker, the Valari Dominion has invaded 3 neutral systems in the past month. They are killing civilians, billions of innocent people." "The Valari are a recognized power," Torvesh replied. "Their expansion, while unfortunate, falls within acceptable parameters. The Concord does not interfere in regional disputes." Regional disputes? Jun-ho felt something cold settle in his chest. "The Valari are slavers. They do not conquer, they harvest. Every world they take becomes a death camp." "Your species is young, Admiral. You see cruelty and wish to act. This is understandable. But the galaxy is vast, and the Concord has maintained peace for millennia by choosing our battles carefully." "By doing nothing, you mean?" Torvesh's crystalline form pulsed with soft light. "By understanding that some evils must burn themselves out. The Valari will overextend. They will collapse. In a century, perhaps 2, the problem will resolve itself. And the billions who die in the meantime? A tragedy," Torvesh admitted, "but an acceptable one." Jun-ho closed his eyes. He had known this would be the answer. Deep down, he had always known. For 300 years, humanity had asked the Concord for help, for recognition, for the simple acknowledgement that human lives had value. And for 300 years, the answer had always been the same. Wait, endure, know your place. "I understand, High Speaker," Jun-ho said finally. "Humanity will comply with the Concord's wishes." "A wise decision, Admiral. Your species shows promise. In time, perhaps in another 1,000 years, humanity may earn a voice in galactic affairs. Until then, we ask only for your patience." The screen went dark. Jun-ho stood alone on the bridge for a long moment. Around him, his crew worked in silence. They had heard the conversation. They had seen their admiral humiliated by a being who considered human suffering an acceptable tragedy. Lieutenant Commander Shin Dae-ho approached carefully. He was young, barely 30, but he had served under Jun-ho long enough to recognize the look in his admiral's eyes. "Sir," Dae-ho said quietly, "what are your orders?" Jun-ho turned to face his crew. 50 men and women who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. 50 souls who had trained and bled and sacrificed, only to be told by ancient beings that their people did not matter. "Open a secure channel to Earth," Jun-ho said. "Priority Alpha. For the defense minister's eyes only." Dae-ho hesitated. Sir, priority Alpha channels are reserved for... I know what they're reserved for, Lieutenant Commander. The bridge fell silent. Every officer present understood what priority Alpha meant. It was not a request for guidance. It was not a report of enemy movement. It was the code that humanity had created 3 centuries ago, in the earliest days of contact with the Concorde. It was the code that meant, we have tried everything else. Now we show them what we really are. Daiho swallowed hard. Channel open, sir. Junho composed the message in his mind. 2 words. Just 2 words that would change the course of galactic history. 2 words that would reveal a secret humanity had kept for 300 years. He typed them slowly, giving himself one final moment to reconsider. But there was nothing to reconsider. The Concorde had made their position clear. Humanity was nothing to them. Human lives were acceptable losses in the grand calculation of galactic politics. Junho pressed send. The message traveled at faster-than-light speeds, crossing the vast distance between the outer territories and Earth in mere seconds. It arrived at a secure facility buried deep beneath the mountains of the Korean peninsula, where Defense Minister Kang Min-ji sat in a room that officially did not exist. She read the 2 words on her screen. Wake them. Min-ji had known this day would come. She had hoped it would not come in her lifetime, but she had known. Every defense minister for the past 2 centuries had known. They had all carried the same burden. The knowledge of what humanity had built in secret, what they had hidden from the watching eyes of the Concorde. She turned to her aide, a young woman named Seo Ji-won, who had never been told the full truth of what lay beneath the surface of humanity's moons and planets. Initiate Protocol Dawn, Min-ji said. Ji-won frowned. Minister, I don't recognize that protocol. You wouldn't. Min-ji stood and walked to a panel on the wall. She pressed her hand against it, and the wall slid open to reveal a second room, one filled with screens showing locations across the solar system. Luna, Mars, Europa, Titan. 17 other moons that the Concorde's observers had dismissed as unimportant. What is this? Ji-won whispered. This, Min-ji said, is the real United Earth Defense Fleet. She entered a code that had been passed down through generations of defense ministers. Across the solar system, in hangars carved from rock and ice, lights began to flicker on. Engines that had slept for decades hummed to life. 6,000 warships, each one carrying weapons the galaxy had never seen, prepared to rise. The sleeping giant was waking, and the galaxy would never be the same. What humanity hid. Deep beneath the surface of Luna, in a cavern that stretched for 50 kilometers, Fleet Commander Yoon Taemin opened his eyes for the first time in 7 years. The cryopod released him slowly. Cold air hit his skin like a slap. His muscles screamed as blood began to flow properly again. A medical officer, a woman named Nari, who had been awakened an hour earlier, stood beside him with a warm blanket and a cup of something hot. Easy, Commander, Nari said. Your body needs time to adjust. Taemin ignored her. He pushed himself upright and looked around the awakening bay. Hundreds of pods lined the walls, each one containing a member of his crew. Men and women who had volunteered for this duty, knowing they might never wake again. Knowing they might spend their entire lives sleeping beneath the moon, while the galaxy forgot they existed. How many? Taemin asked. His voice was rough from disuse. All 6,000 ships are responding to the wake signal, Nari reported. Full crew complement on 94% of vessels. The rest can operate with skeleton crews. 6,000 ships. Taemin let the number settle in his mind. The official United Earth Defense Fleet, the one the Concorde knew about, consisted of 300 vessels. Small ships, weak ships, ships that posed no threat to anyone. That was the fleet the galaxy had watched for 3 centuries. The fleet now awakening beneath Luna was something else entirely. Taemin walked through the cavern, Nari following close behind. Around him, his people emerged from their long sleep. They were not ordinary soldiers. Every man and woman in this fleet had been selected at birth, trained from childhood, and prepared for a single purpose. They were humanity's hidden blade, a weapon forged in secret and kept sharp through generations. "Has the situation been explained to the crews?" Taman asked. "Basic briefing only, sir. They know the Valari Dominion is committing genocide. They know the Concord refuses to act. They know we have been awakened to do what the elder races will not." Taman nodded. It was enough. His people did not need speeches or grand explanations. They understood duty. They understood sacrifice. Most importantly, they understood why they existed. For 300 years, humanity had played a role. They had pretended to be weak. They had allowed the Concord to scan their ships and catalog their weapons. They had endured the mockery and dismissal of races who considered themselves superior. And all that time, they had been building. The first hidden shipyard was constructed on Luna in the year 2089, just 50 years after humanity's first contact with the Concord. Earth's leaders had looked at the galaxy and seen a simple truth. The strong survived, and the weak became victims. If humanity wanted to survive, they needed to become strong. But they also needed the elder races to believe they were harmless. So humanity had built two fleets. The public fleet was designed to look impressive enough to maintain human pride, but weak enough to pose no threat. The Concord's observers studied these ships carefully. They noted the primitive engines, the limited weapons, the fragile hulls. They reported back to their governments that humanity was exactly what they appeared to be, a young species still learning to walk among the stars. The hidden fleet was different. Taman entered the command center of Luna Base 7. Screens covered every wall, showing the status of ships across the solar system. Each vessel was marked with a simple designation: Dawn Class, Twilight Class, Eclipse Class. Names that meant nothing to outsiders but carried profound weight for those who served in the hidden fleet. "Show me the Eclipse vessels," Taman ordered. The main screen shifted to display a formation of massive ships. Each one was 10 kilometers long, larger than anything the Concord had ever built. Their hulls were covered in material that absorbed light, making them appear as moving shadows against the stars. Their weapons systems were based on technologies humanity had discovered but never revealed: gravity manipulation, quantum-locked armor, weapons that could tear holes in the fabric of space itself. The Concord believed they understood physics. They believed they had mastered the fundamental forces of the universe. What they did not know was that humanity had found something else, something hidden in the mathematics of reality that the elder races had overlooked. The Concord was powerful, but they had grown comfortable in their power. They had stopped looking for new discoveries, new possibilities. They believed they had reached the peak of what was possible. Humanity had no such illusions. "Commander!" a voice called from across the room. Taman turned to see Communications Officer Cha Minho approaching with a tablet. "We are receiving final orders from Earth. Admiral Park is en route to coordinate the fleet." Taman took the tablet and read the orders. They were simple and clear. "Proceed to the Thesson system. Engage and destroy all Valari military forces. Protect civilian populations. Show no mercy to those who show none to others." "Send acknowledgement," Taman said, "and begin launch preparations for all vessels." The next hour was chaos. Thousands of soldiers moved through the underground hangars, boarding ships that had waited decades for this moment. Engineers ran final checks on systems that had been maintained by automated processes. Pilots strapped themselves into cockpits designed for speed and violence. On the bridge of the Void Walker, the flagship of the hidden fleet, Taman took his position at the command chair. Around him, his senior officers assumed their stations. Each one had trained their entire life for this day. "All ships report ready, Commander," First Officer Kim Hagen announced. "The fleet awaits your order." Taman looked at the main view screen. It showed the interior of the hangar, a vast space filled with ships that humanity had never intended to use, ships built for a war they hoped would never come. But hope was not strategy, and the conquered had proven that peace only lasted as long as the strong allowed it to. "Open fleet-wide communication," Taman ordered. "Channel open, sir." Taman stood. His voice carried across 6,000 ships, reaching the ears of every soldier in humanity's hidden fleet. "For 300 years we have slept, we have trained, we have prepared. The galaxy looked at humanity and saw weakness. They saw a young species that could be ignored, dismissed, forgotten. They told us to know our place." He paused, letting the words settle. "Today, we show them exactly where that place is. Today, the sleeping giant rises. Today, the galaxy learns what humanity becomes when we are pushed beyond endurance." He sat back down in his command chair. "Launch all ships." The hangars opened. Ships rose from beneath the surface of moons across the solar system. 6,000 vessels emerged from hiding and formed into battle groups, a fleet larger than anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The hidden fleet entered fold space, disappearing from human territory in a flash of distorted light. They would arrive at the Thessan system in 3 hours, and the Valari Dominion, conquerors of 47 species, would discover that they had made a terrible mistake. They had hurt innocents while humanity watched. Now humanity was coming. The Galaxy Watches. Supreme Commander Maltheus of the Valari Dominion stood on the observation deck of his flagship and watched the Thessan homeworld burn. The planet below had resisted for 6 hours. 6 hours of defiance from a species that should have surrendered the moment Valari ships entered their system. Maltheus found their courage admirable, but ultimately pointless. The Valari had conquered 47 species across 3,000 years. They had perfected the art of breaking worlds. "Processing estimates?" Maltheus asked his aide without turning from the window. 12 billion Thessan civilians remain alive, Supreme Commander. Preliminary sorting suggests 8 billion are suitable for labor camps. The remaining 4 billion will be processed for biological resources." Processed. Such a clean word for such an ugly reality. The Valari did not simply kill those they deemed unsuitable for slavery. They harvested them, organs, genetic material, chemical compounds extracted from living bodies. Nothing was wasted in the Valari Dominion. "Begin the harvest," Maltheus ordered. "I want this system secured within—" An alarm cut through his words, then another. Then every alarm on the bridge activated at once, filling the air with screaming warnings. "Supreme Commander!" his tactical officer shouted. "Massive energy signatures detected at the system's edge. Ships are emerging from fold space." "How many ships?" The tactical officer's face went pale. 6,000, Supreme Commander, and they do not match any known configurations in our database." Maltheus turned slowly from the window. 6,000 ships. The entire Valari fleet numbered 8,000 vessels, and they were spread across 24 conquered systems. Here, at Thessan, he commanded only 900. "Show me," he demanded. The main view screen shifted to display the arrivals. Maltheus had seen many fleets in his long career. He had fought the Silvari, the Thornex, even engaged Concord peacekeeping forces. He knew what ships looked like. These were not ships. These were nightmares given form. The vessels that emerged from fold space were black as the void between stars. They moved in perfect formation, not a single ship out of position. Their hulls absorbed sensor scans, returning nothing but emptiness. They were shadows with mass, darkness with purpose. "What species is this?" Maltheus whispered. "The energy signatures are—" The tactical officer checked his readings 3 times before speaking. "Human, Supreme Commander. These ships are human." Impossible. Maltheus knew the human fleet. Every species in the galaxy knew the human fleet. 300 primitive vessels, barely capable of defending their own solar system. Weak engines, outdated weapons, a species that had been told to know their place. These ships were something else entirely. A communication signal cut through the chaos. Malthius gestured for it to be displayed. A human face appeared on screen, an older man with gray at his temples, and eyes that held no warmth, no mercy, no doubt. He wore the uniform of a fleet admiral, and he spoke with a voice like falling stone. "This is Admiral Park Jun-ho of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Your ships have 3 minutes to power down weapons and prepare for boarding. Any vessel that fails to comply will be destroyed." Malthius felt something he had not felt in centuries. It took him a moment to recognize the sensation. Fear. He crushed it immediately. "Human," Malthius replied, "you address the Supreme Commander of the Valari Dominion. We have conquered 47 species. Your threats mean nothing." Admiral Park did not blink. 2 minutes, 45 seconds. Malthius cut the communication and turned to his fleet commanders. "Attack formation. All ships engage the human fleet. Show these primitives what happens when they challenge their betters." 900 Valari warships moved into battle formation. They had destroyed countless enemies with this strategy. Their weapons were the finest in the galaxy. Their crews were veterans of 100 campaigns. The human fleet did not move. "Fire," Malthius commanded. Valari weapons lit up the darkness. Plasma cannons, particle beams, gravity torpedoes, enough firepower to crack a moon. The barrage crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds, and then something impossible happened. The human ships rippled. Space itself seemed to bend around them. The Valari weapons struck and passed through as if the ships were not there. "What?" Malthius began. The human fleet responded. Light, sound, violence. Malthius had never seen weapons like this. Beams of absolute darkness that cut through Valari ships like they were made of paper, missiles that appeared inside his vessels, bypassing shields entirely, gravity wells that crushed cruisers into spheres of compressed metal. Across the fleet, Valari ships died. Not in battle, in slaughter. The humans did not fight with honor or restraint. They did not accept surrenders or offer mercy. They fought the way predators fought prey. Captain Lee Soman led the assault wing that broke the Valari formation. Her ship, the Silent Judgment, moved faster than sensors could track, appearing behind enemy vessels and destroying them before they could turn. She had trained for this her entire life. Every simulation, every exercise, every moment of preparation came down to this. "Wing 2, target their command structure," Soman ordered. "Wing 3, disable their retreat vectors. No one leaves this system." Lieutenant Baek Hyun-woo commanded the boarding teams. His soldiers wore armor that the Concorde had never seen, powered suits that enhanced human strength tenfold and protected against weapons that should have been fatal. They cut through Valari warships, securing critical systems and capturing officers for interrogation. "Command deck secured," Hyun-woo reported as his team reached the bridge of a Valari destroyer. The alien crew stared at the human soldiers with something approaching disbelief. These were not the weak, primitive humans they had been told about. These were something else entirely. In the chaos of battle, pilot Choi Yuna flew alone. Her fighter was small, barely 20 meters long, but it moved like thought itself, weaving between Valari ships with impossible grace. She had been born for this. Her reflexes had been enhanced since childhood. Her nervous system modified to process information faster than any unaltered human. 3 Valari carriers stood between the human fleet and the planet below. Each carrier held thousands of soldiers ready to continue the harvest of Thessan civilians. Yuna accelerated. The carriers tried to track her. Their weapons filled space with death, but she was too fast, too precise. She threaded through their defensive fire like water through stones. The first carrier died when her weapons found its reactor core. The second fell when she placed a precision shot through its bridge. The third, the largest of the 3, tried to flee. Yuna caught it. "Carrier down," she reported, watching the massive ship break apart. "Path to the planet is clear." On the bridge of his flagship, Supreme Commander Maltheus watched his fleet die. 900 ships reduced to debris in 11 minutes. The humans had not lost a single vessel. A proximity alarm screamed. Maltheus turned to see human soldiers breaching his bridge. Lieutenant Bayek Hyunwoo stepped through the smoke, his weapon raised. "Supreme Commander Maltheus," Hyunwoo said, "you are now a prisoner of the United Earth Defense Fleet." Maltheus stared at the human soldier. He had conquered 47 species. He had never once considered that he might become the conquered. "How?" he whispered. "How did you hide this?" Hyunwoo secured the alien commander and began escorting him off the bridge. But before he left, he turned back with an answer. "You told us to know our place. You spent 300 years believing we were beneath your notice." The lieutenant's voice held no pride, no triumph, only cold certainty. "That was your mistake." In orbit above the Thessan homeworld, 12 billion civilians watched as human ships took position around their planet. Ships that had appeared from nowhere destroyed their conquerors in minutes, and now stood guard against any who might try again. The galaxy received the battle footage within hours. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the elder races of the conquered learned what fear truly meant. The Reckoning. The council chamber of the Galactic Concord had stood for 10,000 years. Its walls held the memories of treaties signed and wars ended. Its halls had witnessed the rise and fall of empires. The 12 elder races who sat in judgment here believed themselves to be the masters of all they surveyed. Today they were afraid. High Speaker Torvesh called the emergency session with a tremor in his voice that his fellow council members had never heard before. Representatives from all 12 Concord species gathered in the ancient chamber, their faces showing various forms of shock, disbelief, and terror. "You have all seen the recordings," Torvesh began. "The human fleet engaged the Valari at Thessan. 900 Valari warships were destroyed in 11 minutes. The humans suffered no losses." "Impossible," declared Ambassador Veth of the Silvari. His species was known for their advanced technology, or what they had believed was advanced technology until this morning. "Our observations of the human fleet showed primitive capabilities, limited engines, weak weapons. They could not have hidden 6,000 warships of this power." "And yet they did," Torvesh replied. "For 300 years. The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. High General Croth of the Thornax stood. His species was the military backbone of the Concord, warriors who had maintained peace through strength for millennia. "We must act immediately. If humanity possesses weapons of this magnitude, they represent an existential threat to the Concord itself." "Act how?" asked Ambassador Liss of the Narathi. "Our combined fleets number 20,000 vessels. The humans have already demonstrated they can destroy 900 ships without taking a single casualty. Do the mathematics, High General. If we engage them, we will lose." "Then we negotiate," suggested Representative Thorne of the Valdezi. "Offer them concessions. Bring them into the Concord as full members. Give them what they have always wanted." "And appear weak?" Croth snarled. "The moment we show fear, every minor species in the galaxy will believe they can challenge us." The doors to the council chamber opened. Ambassador Han Eunji walked in alone. She was small by human standards, barely reaching the shoulder of most conquered representatives. She wore a simple diplomatic uniform without medals or decorations. She carried no weapons, no guards, no display of power. She did not need any. "Ambassador Han," Torvesh said carefully, "you were not scheduled to address this session." "I was not scheduled," Eunji agreed. "But I believe the council wishes to discuss my people. It seems only fair that a human be present for such discussions." She walked to the center of the chamber and looked around at the assembled representatives. 12 species who had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. 12 species who had spent 3 centuries dismissing humanity as irrelevant. 12 species who were now terrified. "I have prepared no speech," Yunji said. "I find that speeches are often used to hide truth rather than reveal it. So let me speak plainly." She turned to face Torvesh directly. "For 300 years, humanity asked for nothing but respect. We asked to be heard. We asked to be treated as equals. We asked for the simple acknowledgement that human lives had value. We showed humanity great patience," Torvesh began. "You showed humanity contempt." Yunji's voice did not rise, but something in it made the high speaker fall silent. "When we asked for help, you told us to know our place. When innocents died, you called it an acceptable tragedy. When we begged you to act against the Velari, you said the problem would resolve itself in a century or two. The Concord has maintained peace. The Concord has maintained comfort," Yunji corrected. "Your peace, your comfort. The suffering of others was always someone else's problem." She reached into her uniform and produced a small holographic projector. An image appeared in the center of the chamber, a map of the galaxy showing the current positions of humanity's fleet. The council members stared in silence. 6,000 warships. They were not clustered around Earth. They were spread throughout conquered space, positioned near every major world, every trade route, every strategic point that mattered. "Our fleet moved into position during the Thessan engagement," Yunji explained. "A precaution in case the Concord decided to respond to our intervention with hostility." "This is an act of war," Croth growled. "You have positioned weapons of mass destruction throughout our territory." "No, High General. This is an act of reality." Yunji smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Your territory exists because you have the power to hold it. Now we have power too. The question before this council is simple. What happens next?" Torvesh leaned forward. "What does humanity want? We want what we have always wanted. To be treated as equals. To have a voice in galactic affairs. To protect innocents from those who would harm them. And if we refuse?" Yunji turned to look at the holographic display. 6,000 ships, weapons that could crack planets, a fleet that had destroyed the Velari vanguard in 11 minutes. "The Velari Dominion still controls 18 systems," she said. "Billions of people remain enslaved. Humanity intends to free them, with or without the Concord's permission. You cannot simply invade a recognized power. Watch us." The chamber went silent. Ambassador Veth of the Silvari spoke carefully. "You understand that we cannot simply accept this. The Concord has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. We cannot allow a young species to dictate terms to us, regardless of their military capabilities." "You are correct," Yunji acknowledged. "You cannot allow it. You must choose it." She deactivated the holographic projector and clasped her hands behind her back. "Humanity is not your enemy. We have no desire to conquer or rule. What we have is a memory of what it means to be weak, to be conquered, to watch our children die while those with power chose to do nothing." She paused, meeting the eyes of each representative in turn. "We built our fleet because we remembered. We hid our strength because we hoped we would never need it. But the Velari proved that hope is not enough. And the Concord proved that trusting in the goodness of others is a fool's strategy. So now we stand before you with a simple offer. Work with us as equals, and we will be your greatest allies. Stand against us, and we will be the last enemy you ever face." "And if we choose neither?" Torvesh asked. "If we simply observe, as we have always done?" Yunji's expression hardened. "Then you will observe as we do what you refuse to do." You will watch as we free the enslaved and punish the guilty. And when it is over, you will live in a galaxy where humanity proved that action matters more than age, and courage matters more than tradition. She turned and walked toward the door. Ambassador Han, Torvesh called out. You speak of humanity's memory. You say you remember what it means to be weak. But now you have power. What guarantee do we have that you will not become what the Velari are? Yunji stopped at the door. She did not turn around. None, she admitted. You will have to trust us. I know that is difficult for species who have spent 10,000 years trusting only themselves. She glanced back over her shoulder, and the council members saw something in her eyes that made their ancient blood run cold. But consider this. We hid our true strength for 300 years. We endured your contempt and your dismissal. We watched the Velari commit genocide and still asked permission before acting. Does that sound like a species that seeks power for its own sake? Or does it sound like a species that desperately hoped they would never have to use what they had built? She opened the door. The choice is yours, High Speaker. But choose quickly. Humanity's patience ended at Thesson. The door closed behind her. The council chamber of the Galactic Concord sat in silence for a long time after she left. The fear that haunted them all. The liberation of the Velari Dominion took 3 months. System by system, world by world, humanity's fleet cut through enemy territory like a blade through silk. The Velari fought with desperate fury. They were a species that had never known defeat, and they could not accept it now. But desperation was not enough against ships that moved like ghosts and weapons that unmade matter itself. Commander Yoon Taemin led the assault on the Velari homeworld. His forces surrounded the planet in a ring of darkness, 600 ships blocking any escape. The Velari defenders numbered in the thousands. Every soldier they had left, every weapon they could bring to bear. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Velari Supreme Council surrendered aboard the same flagship where Maltheus had once watched the Thesson homeworld burn. Admiral Park Junho accepted their surrender personally, standing in the exact spot where Maltheus had ordered the harvest of billions. Your empire is dissolved, Park told the defeated leaders. Your military is disbanded. Your slaves are freed. Your wealth will be used to rebuild the worlds you destroyed. The head of the Supreme Council, an ancient Velari named Sevrath, who had ruled for 3 centuries, stared at the human admiral with hatred and disbelief. You cannot do this, Sevrath hissed. The Concord will never allow a species as young as yours to dictate terms to an established power. The Concord, Park replied, is watching from a safe distance. They have decided that this is humanity's affair. It was true. The Galactic Concord had voted, after much debate, to neither support nor oppose humanity's campaign against the Velari. They called it neutrality. In truth, it was fear. The elder races were not ready to stand beside humanity, but they were even less ready to stand against them. Sevrath fell silent. There was nothing more to say. Captain Lee Somin coordinated the refugee evacuations. Across 18 star systems, billions of former slaves emerged from labor camps and processing facilities. Many had been born in captivity. They had never seen a sky that was not filled with Velari ships. Now they saw human ships instead. What happens to us now? Asked a young Thesson woman as Somin's team processed her paperwork. She was barely 20, born in a camp, raised for labor, scheduled for harvest before the humans arrived. Now you go home, Somin said gently, or you build a new home. The choice is yours. We have a choice. Somin looked at the woman, at the scars on her arms, the wariness in her eyes, the way she flinched whenever someone moved too quickly nearby. She had never been given a choice about anything in her entire life. You have a choice, Somin confirmed. That is what we fought for. When the liberation was complete, humanity controlled the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. The Concord waited in terror for what would come next, for humanity to claim territory, to demand tribute, to become the new masters of a fearful galaxy. Instead, Admiral Park issued a single order: stand down. Defense Minister Kang Minji addressed the galaxy from Earth. She stood in the ruins of Old Seoul, a city that had been destroyed in the Second World War, rebuilt, destroyed again in the Resource Wars, and rebuilt once more. Behind her, the ancient mountains stood unchanged as they had for millions of years. The campaign against the Valari Dominion has concluded, Minji announced. All military objectives have been achieved. All enslaved populations have been freed. She paused, her eyes finding the camera. I speak now to the galaxy, to the elder races of the Concord, to the neutral species who watched from afar, to the young civilizations just beginning to reach for the stars. We did not build our fleet to conquer. We built it because we remembered. Humanity has a long history. We have known war and peace, prosperity and suffering. We have committed terrible acts against our own kind, and we have achieved wonders that seemed impossible. Through all of it, we learned one truth that cannot be denied. Power without purpose is merely destruction, and strength without wisdom is merely cruelty. We remembered what it meant to be weak, to be conquered, to watch our children die while those with power chose to do nothing. We swore that we would never be weak again, but we also swore that we would not become what we hated. The galaxy now knows what humanity can do. Our ships can destroy fleets. Our weapons can crack worlds. If we wished, we could rule every star in this arm of the galaxy. But fear is not respect, and power is not purpose. She stepped forward, her voice growing stronger. Our fleet will return to human space. Our soldiers will go back to sleep beneath the moons of our ancestors. We will rebuild what we have neglected and teach our children to hope for peace while preparing for war. But know this: wherever innocents suffer, wherever tyrants rise, wherever the powerful prey upon the weak, humanity will remember. And humanity will come. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, species who had watched the Valari fall sat in stunned silence. This was not how power was supposed to work. Civilizations that achieved military dominance did not simply stand down. They did not release their conquests. They did not return home. Yet humanity did exactly that. The hidden fleet returned to Earth. The hangars beneath Luna and Mars and Europa closed once more. The soldiers entered their cryopods and prepared to sleep, perhaps for years, perhaps for decades, waiting for the next time they were needed. Commander Yoon Taemin was one of the last to enter his pod. Medical Officer Onari stood beside him, preparing the systems that would keep him alive through another long sleep. "Do you think we will be needed again?" Nari asked. Taemin considered the question. The galaxy was vast. It held countless species, countless ambitions, countless opportunities for cruelty and conquest. The Valari were gone, but others would rise to take their place. "Yes," he said finally, "but hopefully not soon." He closed his eyes. The pod sealed around him, and humanity's hidden blade returned to sleep. The Galactic Concord reformed its charter that year. For the first time in 10,000 years, a new species was granted full membership and a permanent seat on the High Council. Ambassador Han Unji took her place among the elder races, a human woman standing beside beings who had shaped galactic civilization since before her species learned to write. A Silvari delegate approached her after her first council session. His name was Verith, and he had been present when Unji delivered her ultimatum 3 months earlier. "Ambassador Han," Verith said carefully, "may I ask you a question?" Unji nodded. "Of course. What does humanity want from the galaxy now? You have proven your strength. You have earned your place among us. What comes next? Yunji considered the question for a long moment. Around them, the ancient council chamber hummed with the conversation of 12 species, now 13, debating the future of galactic civilization. We want you to be better, she said finally. All of you. The conquered watched the Valari commit genocide for decades. You called it a regional dispute. You calculated acceptable losses. You decided that the suffering of others was not your concern. We were maintaining stability. You were maintaining comfort, Yunji corrected gently. Your comfort, at the cost of everyone else's lives. Vareth fell silent. Humanity does not expect perfection, Yunji continued. We know that difficult choices must sometimes be made, but we expect effort. We expect compassion. We expect that when innocents cry out for help, those with power will at least try to answer. And if we fail? Yunji smiled, a small, sad expression that carried the weight of 3 centuries of memory. Then we will be watching, and we will never forget what you chose to do when we asked for help. She turned and walked away, leaving the Silvari delegate alone with his thoughts. The galaxy had spent 300 years studying humanity, analyzing them, dismissing them. The elder races had believed they understood everything about this young species, their limitations, their potential, their place in the grand order of things. They had understood nothing. Humanity was not a young species struggling to find its place among the stars. They were not primitives who needed guidance from their betters. They were not a threat to be contained or a problem to be managed. They were something far more dangerous. They were a species that had learned to survive anything, endure everything, rise from every defeat stronger than before, and most importantly, most terrifyingly, they were a species that never, ever forgot. The fear that haunted the galaxy was not what humanity might do in the future. It was what humanity had already proven they were willing to become. The elder races had spent 10,000 years believing that power made right, that the strong ruled and the weak obeyed, that this was the natural order of things, unchanging and eternal. Humanity had shown them a different truth. Power was not about strength. It was about choice, and humanity had chosen to remember.